You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast on the We Are Libertarians Network. I'm your host, Jeremiah Morrell, and as always, I'm joined by our co-host, Dakota Davis.
How's it going, Jer?
And we're podcasting again.
We are. It's been, I just said we took a week hiatus, and it's really good to be back in the studio. Like, it was kind of nice there at the beginning to not have to worry about writing show notes and things, but then, like, by Monday, I think that I was suffering withdrawals.
So you took the week off. Kade and I put in the extra effort, and we did an episode of We Are Libertarians. Kade, how you doing?
Pretty good, you?
I'm excited to be here. So, and then our other guest is going to be Susan Huhn. Susan's making her first appearance on the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
Excited to have you here. Yep. I'm going to have you sit forward just a little bit for us.
Excited to be here.
There you go. All right, I'm going to turn her up, too. We'll see how we do. This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. It's a show about folks who are involved in politics, and we promise that our episodes are going to be a fun and an easy listen. We interview people who are influencers, elected officials, political experts, and people we just find interesting. So this is the beginning of a series we've put together that we're going to be talking to the people that are going to be on the ballot that are in contested primaries in our county and our community between now and early May. So we've got almost all of the dates scheduled. Candidates that are in our county, it's a very rural community, and pretty much everybody you're going to hear from in the next few weeks is going to be a Republican candidate because that's the majority party, and that's where you find people that are running. So today, Susan is here. Susan is a second-time candidate for office. You ran for county commissioner 2 years ago, right?
I did.
And you were an independent at that time.
I ran on the independent ticket.
Yep. And then this time you're running as a Republican.
I am.
So we build this as you're kind of an outside challenger in the race, or outside the establishment, because you are running against an incumbent Republican who's the president of the town council.
Correct.
So what are you thinking?
Well, I enjoyed running as an independent because it allows you to be whoever you want to be and not have to conform to anything. But I am a Republican and have always been a Republican. So I think it's appropriate for me to be offered the opportunity to run the Republican ticket in this election.
Awesome. So we'll get into the politics a little bit in a little while, but let's kind of get to know you a little bit first.
Okay, good.
Before we get into the political stuff, you got a big family.
I have 5 children.
5 kids, and we were talking before you homeschool.
We homeschool.
I was homeschooled growing up right here in Henry County.
It's an exciting journey.
Yep, very cool, and really very similar to what we had. We had a hobby farm growing up on Messick Road, kind of in the northeast. Would have been in your district actually.
Okay.
Kind of south of just north of Liberty Township into Blue River Township. And we had goats and sheep and chickens and horses, and that sounds like that you guys kind of have is going on as well.
We do. We have sheep we're raising for meat. It's been a lot of fun to learn how to do that. Chickens, we've done eggs and meat. And
have you done your own butchering, or have you farmed it out or sourced that out to somebody else?
I helped butcher our chickens, and the first time we butchered, we did it, and at the end of the day, we were just drained. We'd never killed anything before, any of us. I can't believe we just killed all these things.
How many did you do? How many?
We did them in 2 sets. We probably did 12 each day.
Okay.
And we split it in half.
See, I would love to have chickens, and I would love to have goats, but Darren Jacobs won't let me.
Oh, you got the Darren Jacobs reference out early.
I did, yeah. We had to put him in here and get him out of the way. We call Darren the token socialist. He's the Boss Hog of Liberty.
Okay, that's good to know.
It's a term of endearment. Darren's also been on the show a number of times, and we enjoy it. He's actually the Bartlett for America poster up there. Darren's a big fan of the West Wing, and I share that with him. So when he, I think his second trip by, he brought that on as a little gift. So our studio is getting all these. It's really cool. We got all the political signs, and I hit you up and said, "Do you got a sign for us yet?" And no, they're coming in tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
So
horrible
Huhn
timing
for council.
Yes.
I need to be smarter about that myself because I've run for office before. I ran for state representative and I ran for county council. I just need to get Jeremiah for something and just leave it blank so that we can change out the label.
I had people say, we still have your signs. I said, but they say commissioner, so I don't think that's right.
It's going to be a couple years before you can use those again.
I have your T-shirt. And like, the T-shirt might be able to pass. I just won't be able to wear that.
As long as it's the same type logo, people will be like, oh,
there you go.
I know that lady.
That's right.
So you are highly educated, too. You were talking, you teach class in the evenings with kids in China.
English as second language classes with children in China. It's called VIP Kid. It's a great job for moms who want to be home, and it's very fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And you attended IU, and you've got a BS from there in a Bachelor of Science in Finance and Information Systems.
Yes.
And then you also would have some connection with Purdue University as well.
When I started at Cummins, they were taking hires from the business school. They thought that was the best business program, and then they run them through their own technical training program with Purdue to try to get the technical skills that Purdue's better at. Okay. They feel like that makes their people more well-rounded. That's the program I went through.
Well, very cool. And then I've gotten to know you a little bit as well through 4-H. Your kids are coming up in the 4-H program, so
they are.
You'll have questions about those from time to time.
Yes. Yeah, our oldest is 11. They're 11, 9, 8, 5, and 3.
So what kind of projects are you helping out with as you get into for homeschoolers really do like the 4-H program because it's a way to really dig into a project that the kids are interested in. So the livestock, and then I'd imagine some of the other we'll call Smith building projects as well.
Yeah, it's been really great. I didn't do 4-H at all growing up, but when I looked at the list of projects, I thought you could actually build a homeschooling curriculum around these somewhat. But my oldest is all an outside kid, so he wants to do animals. But my 8-year-old has been building Lego sets.
Oh, really?
I got him 3 Lego kits 3 days ago, and they're all put together. And they're ready for the 4-H fair.
Wow.
But he's really
so that
excited.
means that the other 6 people in the house are constantly walking around with injured feet.
There's Legos everywhere.
Or he's mad because someone kicked a Lego. I said, you have to put them in one spot, not in a doorway, because there's 6 people walking through.
Yes.
That's right.
I know that lecture very well from my parents whenever I was a child.
Guy?
Oh, yeah. Like, I would wager that if you gave me some Legos right now, like I would still be excited about it.
It'd still be fun.
Yeah.
I'm not. It fascinates me that he's good at it, and I can't believe how fast he can read. He never asks for help. He can sit down with the directions, and it looks right to him, and he gets that from his daddy.
There you go.
I think it was like Connects. Was that something?
Yeah, the Connects.
And I remember when I was little, I built a roller coaster. It would have took up like half this room.
Yeah.
But like it would actually pull itself up to the top and
drop
itself
so
off
you and your cousin Trevor were the same way.
Yeah.
Because he was big into Connects. I was big into Legos. Yeah. I remember building those giant things in his bedroom, and like you couldn't walk around the bedroom because the things were so big. No, those are really fun for kids to do.
Yeah,
like,
I really think so too.
So you actually, whenever you announced your candidacy for county council, your candidacy was actually challenged, and your ballot access was challenged by the Republican chair for the county. Yes. You ended up making it onto the ballot, but he basically a party chair can challenge a candidacy if they don't believe that you're actually a Republican.
Correct.
So like if I'm the chair of the Libertarian Party in the county, and if I don't think you're a Libertarian, I can challenge candidacy, and then you can challenge that back.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what happened in your situation. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
I knew when I first started to run, I checked to make sure I did qualify by state law, and I did. And I knew that the Republican Party, at least a section of them, was going to be very unhappy to see my name on the ballot. So I wasn't surprised that they tried to block me out. I was surprised that they did so when I so clearly met state law. But it didn't surprise me that they didn't want me to run.
So the argument or the discussion, and I didn't know. I was actually educated by your candidacy because I didn't know. In 2016, you ran as an independent.
Right.
But the state doesn't care about that. What matters is that there are two parties that have primaries. Right. So what goes on your permanent record is whatever party.
For lack of better words.
It's like getting detention in school. You voted in the Democrat primary. It's on your permanent record. So the last time you had pulled a ballot in a primary was in Hancock County, as I understand, and it was in 2014 or 2012.
Right.
So that was the last you go back through and trace it and say, hey, here's what I had.
Correct.
And then the 3-0 vote, you won. It was unanimous, and you were certified.
Right. And they had even checked with the state to make sure that me running as an independent didn't matter. And the words were essentially that it was irrelevant.
So the last party primary I voted in was in 2010 as a Republican. So
you have that on your permanent record.
Fair warning, Republicans, at any moment I could come
your
terrorize you.
Your comments were interesting on Facebook, and I can see that would maybe leave a party feeling like, well, they haven't voted in as a Democrat or since then, but are they really a Republican?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's valid. And I think we pointed out too that I have also joined the Republican Club. I've gone to other Republican events, and I think my actions are consistent with being part of the Republican Party.
Yeah, that's what I know. The Courier-Times, whenever I was looking all this stuff up, right in the show notes, the Courier-Times article said, you told them, hey, I've always voted Republican, and the reason that I ran as independent last year, I didn't sign up in time. So
I didn't enter the political arena until after the date when I would have had to.
Right.
I didn't know I wanted to run until April or May. I can't remember. I think we got the signatures in April in 2000.
And then you were inspired, and it was on.
And then I saw how government worked and how important it is to have people in government you can trust, and I want to be one of those trustworthy people.
Well, very good. So Dakota and I, this last Monday, we've been following the story of the Doughboy, and this is not going to be the issue. I hope this is not the issue that the county council election is about. But right now, in the news, this seems to be the thing everybody wants to talk about.
Yes.
So if we have people that are listening locally, we have people all over the state and the country that really do listen. We have a statue that's been as a memorial in our memorial park since 1929, dedicated by the War Mothers. And it's called a Doughboy, and it represents basically the American doughboy or the American soldier in World War I.
Right.
So it's been here for 90 years. It was falling apart and needed restoration.
Yes.
It had been vandalized and it was in rough shape. So I was on the Memorial Park Board at the time, and we've been going through this process with the Hope Initiative in Henry County. I'm sure you're familiar with the Hope Initiative and that group. And over a period of a couple of years, we went from rehabbing a building to we need to look at the whole park, and then some committees were formed, and then there was a big plan that came about in June. Committees were formed, and there were a number of different public presentations, and by August, there was a monuments committee that had put together a plan to basically refurbish the Doughboy, save the Doughboy, and a part of that was to place it in front of a Smith Building project, where the first floor of the Smith Building is going to be a memorial, like a museum.
Right.
So that was approved and accepted, and then a couple months later, this hubbub started, and so here we are. So there was another park board meeting. I don't think you'd had a chance to come to that one.
No.
But Dakota and I went, and there was all kinds of news crews there. It was Channel 59, Channel 13.
Yes.
Yeah, it got pretty intense. I mean, there was whenever I was pulling in, they were taking they were doing a panoramic shot of the front of the Smith Building, where the Doughboy is going to stand, and they have that all marked in front of the Smith Building where the monument's going to be and everything, and where it's proposed to be. I guess I shouldn't really say where it's going to be yet. And
it won't be done until it's done.
Yeah,
right?
Yep, it's not over yet, and there was Fox 59, there was Channel 13 News, and they came inside. We sat down, and I was. The last park board meeting that I was at, and they were actually, taking some public comment on this. Right. There was 20, 30 people there, and there was easily double, if not more there this time. And but part of the hubbub this time was that they weren't going to allow public comment. Yes. The park board had decided to decline Air Force Captain Jason Straw's, I think I'm saying his last name right, Straw, and they declined his request to speak about the Doughboy, and it was not received well by those who are in opposition to the move. And so they had all these signs made up. They weren't just like poster board and written in Sharpie.
They were like yard signs.
Yeah, they're like yard signs. Like they were pretty well done, and they had them. Don't move our Doughboy, keep the Doughboy. Hashtag We the People. I saw one that said that, and there was some serious hubbub that was going around there.
So it was, I guess, publicly, there's a standing meeting, 7 o'clock, third Monday. I think it's probably third Monday, second or third Monday, whatever it was of the month is the Memorial Park Board meeting. And they had a resignation of Chad Mallico, the previous president. So this was billed as a reorganization meeting where they weren't going to have public comment. And then they had a kind of a punch list of things they were going to go through. And I can tell you from serving on the park board, you can have a 3-hour meeting. Dakota looked over at me and said, "This is taking forever." And I was like, "No, this is minor. Like from 7 to 10 was not out of the ordinary at all, because things can just go on and on and on because they deal with interfacing with 4-H and their requests and the general public and the scheduling they have and the maintenance needs for the park and the Saddle Club and working with them and their calendar, and then you've got all these different committees. And right now they had we heard presentations on the refurb of the Smith building upstairs and downstairs.
Yep.
And those committees all reported back. And legitimately, I'm not sure that they would have had time for another 30 or 40-minute presentation. And then once you get that started, then you get the other side wants to have their say, and it's difficult.
The presentation was actually where it got interesting, because whenever he went up there, he started giving the presentation about what's going to happen, what his vision is. There was one veteran that was kind of sitting catty corner to me. He'd been wearing a Vietnam War vet hat all night, and he stands up, he takes his hat off, and he turns around with his back facing the board, and he crosses his arms and says, "I'm not going to listen." So, which is, that's fine. Like, you have the absolute right to protest, and, I mean, my God, it's protected in the First Amendment. And a lot of other people followed suit, but then where it kind of got out of hand was some people started yelling. There were a lot of comments made, and there was yelling from the president of the park board to be quiet, and it just got crazy. And I was like,
picture it, though I was not there.
Yeah, it was like, I cannot.
Similar meetings.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just sitting there like dumbfounded. I'm like, I cannot believe that the news stations left before this started happening.
I didn't know that.
They legitimately were there.
They did.
This is the secret about local news. They get their B-roll at the meeting, and then usually they're done. They don't want to sit there for 2 or 3 hours to cover a meeting, so they'll talk to 1 or 2 people ahead of time, get their 20 seconds that they need to do their show, and then they're done. Okay. So, Fox 59 said, "Hey, there's a thing," and they talked to 1 or 2 people. Channel 13 went a little bit more in depth and covered the pre-meeting that was there. But it's Rush Limbaugh always used to call it the drive-by media, and it really is, where they sweep in, "Oh, well, they got this," and it was they drive all the way out to Henry County, 45 minutes east of town for a 20-second thing on the news, and then they're done with it.
Yep.
So thankfully we got Eldon Pitts and Travis Wyke and the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast that's kind of filling us in too, right?
So what can actually be done at this point, I think, is the question that everybody is asking. Like, everybody that's in opposition is that, there have been different opposing plans that have been submitted and letters to the park board from the American War Mothers, from other people who have had pretty decent ideas. Personally, I'm kind of neutral on the issue. I think it would be awesome if there could be another monument dedicated in that area, something that honored, personally with my generation, the people who've been fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq. That would be really, really, really neat. Right. But at the same time, I understand that it just might not be feasible. Like, that's definitely a possibility. So I did some research. I started digging into a lot of different sites. I looked up one artist website about that he actually does make bronze statues of life-size people. And, I was like, that's a great source from the mouth of the person who makes the things. And on average, his statues cost about $32,000. Okay. If he's not going to make a profit off of it, it's going to be a little bit more. And if he's going to make a significant profit off of it, it's going to be a little bit less. And talking to Mark Sean Orr, I brought his name up multiple times in the show talking about the Doughboy. He basically found the exact same thing.
Yes.
I printed out that article for you guys where he actually talks about the entire process that he has to go through. And it's like, okay, because $32,000 seems astronomical at first. Right. The process that you read about, it's like, that might not be that too much. And because they do a lot of work.
Well, I'm
But
beginning to wonder if if the way the story ends is that that's how Henry County got a second Doughboy in Memorial Park.
Right, yeah, that's what we were talking
because
about.
You're turning into Solomon and you're trying to cut the thing in half because you've got people that legitimately want to see it where it was because they feel very strongly and emotionally towards one thing.
Yes.
And I understand that and respect that. And then on the other side, you have a veterans group that came forward, took the initiative, did the work, and are given a green light.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you're looking at ripping the carpet out from under a volunteer group, and you wonder, okay, how are you ever going to get any volunteers again in this county when you give somebody the authority to go forward, do something, sell something to the public? You go out and raise, I think the county put in like $8,000 in food and beverage money to actually pay for the restoration and to kind of as some seed money to help with the transportation and to get make sure that portion was going to get done. But then they've gone out and raised over $20,000 just, quickly selling bricks for a plaza and just through general donations and through their flagpole. I think they have these flagpoles that they've sold sponsorships for. You donate just like any other project of this nature. You pay for one and you get your name put on it or whatever. And man, it's tough to wash that you're going to change that because then what happens to those folks that gave towards that project?
I think that one good thing about starting out on an issue neutral is you can watch it unfold. So when this first started, I thought, I honestly don't care where the Doughboy's located. History's not my thing. But when I was reading Mark's comments and they have some very legitimate reasons why the Doughboy should be left where it is. And something
like sentimental reasons.
Not just sentimental, but as far as the placement mimicked what the original artist wanted.
Yeah.
And I thought that was valid. And one thing that stuck out with me is if I had been on the park board, I might have done the same thing that the current park board members did. One good idea might have been to contact the Historical Society and other people in the county that might have had a different perspective. And so I would, as far as what can be done, I would like to see the process restarted. And with some public input, the people who are against the move, they say they outnumber the people who are for it. You were commenting about that today. Is that true or not? Mm-hmm. And it would be good to really find out if that's true. They've done a petition. We haven't tried to do a petition for people who are for the move.
Yep.
And so what?
So we've seen, a number of different discussions online and, countless different forums have tried to take this up, and people are saying, well, we got to put this on a referendum and talk about this. And, at what point is this democracy or is it a republic where we pick a government and we move forward? Because as it is, this park's been, in almost this food and beverage money that kind of spearheaded this was awarded 2.5 years ago. And yet they're still at the starting line with these projects.
We can say, okay, the decision was done and it's time to move forward. But how often in Henry County do we have a decision that really gets heated? We have the wind farm, we have the Doughboy, we had this PC meeting, but the county makes decisions by the dozens, hundreds weekly. You go to the council meetings, the commissioner meetings, the PC meetings. And
PC being Planning Commission.
Right, PC being Planning Commission. And park board meetings. And the decisions are made all the time. But when we get a significant amount of opposition, is it appropriate to reconsider? And I think that the people in the county are ready for the government to be willing to say, maybe that's something we didn't think of. Maybe we should have talked to the Historical Society. And maybe the decision ends up the same, but when people aren't heard, we get meetings like what happened the other night. Because it even maybe wasn't the right time for that conversation to happen. You said there was a different agenda.
Yeah, basically they had a full agenda of projects because they are, the park's getting a makeover. It's getting it's badly needed attention for a long time. And the W.G. Smith building, there's an annex that's been putting water in there, so they got an update on that project. They had a bid opening for that.
Yeah.
They had a report based on reconstructing a kitchen so that they can have their museum downstairs. Then there will be a new state-of-the-art kitchen for people to rent for the upstairs auditorium space. Right. And then there was discussion about the monument. There's going to be the first floor. People call it the basement, but really it's a walkout basement. So it has a really nice view of the lake that's there. It's really a nice spot. They have a veterans museum that's going to be there. So there's going to be an interactive museum where people will come in. The current kitchen space is going to be a theater where you'll see videos played. And then in the main area, they will actually have interactive where veterans can come in and tell their story, be recorded, and then that'll be there to live on, and people can come in and watch them. So we got that update as well, which is really neat. And then there was an update on the cannon. There's a cannon that's been Omar Bundy. Are you familiar with Omar Bundy?
the name Bundy, but beyond that, no.
He was a general in World War
Okay.
I. And captured a piece of artillery,
Right.
and it was brought back to Henry County, and it's been on a hill on display.
See, this is why I would have made the same decision as the park board.
Right.
Why contact people who know more about history.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Humane Society, or not Humane Society, they have nothing to do with the park board. The Historical Society has been refurbishing for the last 3.5 years of volunteer labor the cannon, so the wheels, and it's going to be in great shape. So we got an update, or the public got an update on that for the first time in a while.
It was good to get an update on that, too, because I have seen all the rumors flying around that, the park board just got rid of the cannon and stuff. Like, they just got rid of it to try to make some money. They scrapped it probably. And I'm like, okay, come on. Like, I didn't believe those, first of all. Right. But it was pretty neat and interesting to hear what he had to say about the cannon, because it is pretty, like, that cannon's pretty sweet. Like, it's really awesome. Huh. And, You actually talked about, we saw a thread that people were saying that there needs to be a referendum. We need to hear from the people in the county. And, to get a special vote on something takes, I had no idea. Yes. I didn't know until I started looking this up. Like, it takes so much work.
It's really a finance. We don't have, like, in California, you watch the national news, and you can put a referendum about anything out there.
Yeah.
They want to legalize weed. You just put it on the ballot, and if the majority of people vote for it, then all of a sudden you have recreational marijuana in California. In Indiana, we basically have public referendums on whether or not we keep judges, right, and if we can raise our property taxes.
Right.
That's about it. We don't have public questions.
We've been through this with the wind farm issue.
Yeah, it's a dead end road
to get something right. And so that's not necessarily what I would like to see happen, but as far as looking for ways where we can welcome people into the conversation process. And if the park board had said, we can't talk about it tonight, but we will talk to you about it now, right, or if they had said that a month ago, I feel like when people feel like they're not heard, what we can expect to happen just by human nature, right or wrong, is they get more and more aggressive to try to find ways to be heard. Yep. And people get more and more upset. And so I think if only just to show respect for the constituents you represent, sometimes it's worth slowing down and having an extra conversation with the real mentality that maybe there's a better solution.
So at the April meeting, it was they agreed that they were going to hear from Jason Straw, which is the other group. They had brought Jason, and I think they agreed to put him on the agenda for 15 minutes at the next meeting. So you'll have more public comment at that point and discussion.
Okay. And we will be there.
And Dakota will be there with the camera.
That's right. So one of the reasons that I think it's interesting to talk about this while you're on the show, like it just so happened that really blew up.
Well, we've had you scheduled for like a month, right? I mean,
right.
Like I said before, this show we are legitimately scheduled pretty much through May at this point with candidates, and unless Dakota and I start going to 2 a week, we're about full up.
That's not going to happen anytime soon.
Not without some major contributors.
I don't get paid enough for that. No, but it is interesting because the county council, like I talked about on the last episode with Scott Fleener, the county council does control the budget process. Right. They do control the money. And, if the park board needs $30,000 for a new statue, the county council would be the ones to approve that request.
Correct.
If you're using public money.
Right, if you want to use public money. So, like, they could allocate those funds to the park board.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess that would be the first question for you. Would that be something that you would be interested in?
That's not on the top of my list of where to allocate money. So I'm going into it. I'm trying to see if there's any way we can be more efficient to allocate money to the roads, or how are we going to handle the jail?
Well, I think that's a responsible answer.
Yeah. So do I want $30,000 to go to a new statue? No. I think it's excellent. You mentioned this in passing, and it's an excellent opportunity for a grant. And that's been something, I think, if there's any way the county could look at other opportunities for grant money for parks and other, I think that would be an excellent approach.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the park, you got a 300-acre park with about a budget that's 75% of the budget goes to salary and legacy costs. So you've got, roughly $400,000 a year to run a park, and $300,000 is tied in wages or some sort of, cost associated with headcount.
Yes.
So you've got $100,000 to mow, to pay for all of your utilities, to pay for your improvements, and it's just, you've got that many structures, and you can't, it doesn't work, and that's why we've seen the decay we have. Yes. So when you see, you go through this process that they started with, that the commissioners kind of put in when, I lose track of time. This has been going on for so long, but a year and a half ago, we had, there was one plan to go forward with a company called Steel Corps to reconstruct one of the buildings to kind of build new fairgrounds. And then it led to, stopping everything at that time and a reset. And then that led to all of these different, there was a listening session at the Smith Building. There was one in Knightstown, and there was one at Shenandoah where there's public input, and all of these folks dreamed and came up with this plan. And then there's a big master agreement back in June last year of, hey, this is what we want to have. And then those committees continued to meet. So I know that there's people that just found out, but there's always people that just found out. So you feel really frustrated where you're standing at the top of the mountain going, this is what we're going to do, guys. And then once you have a plan, and then people come out with pitchforks and they're like, why didn't anybody tell me? And I'm like, man, I don't know how much more you can do. And that's where I'm just at the point with government where I'm like, well, government doesn't work. Let's just give up. I'm not sure.
Well,
I'm not sure that government can be
concern.
effective.
I want to give one example, though, of being on the other side of this. So the wind farm down by my house, I found out about way late. And I was berated, and we all were for not coming on board. And when we looked at it from a legal issue, it actually says in the meeting minutes when they passed the project through that the notifications were not sent out correctly. It was passed anyways. And so I think that that's an example of where it really was done wrong. But people believe and still say it was done correctly. Yep. And I'm not saying the park board did not do it correctly, but we want to make sure we communicate with people as many ways as possible. The Citizens of Henry County Facebook page, I don't see notifications on there. That would be a great place to put things that's for people that are concerned watch. And nothing goes there that I've seen, unless someone's upset and they post something like the zoning the other day. And then that's how I found out about the rezone issue on 300 South. But
so let's get into that one a little bit, because that's a really interesting conversation to have as well. And I watched it, and I'm actually, you live close to one of the proposed wind farms down in the southern part of the county. I live, 2,000 feet away from this parcel that is potentially being rezoned, or it's, I guess, to rezone something. Right now, it's rural residential, and it's like a 150 acre plot, and it's owned by it's basically a partnership between 3 or 4 different individuals. And right now it's rural residential, and it's been rezoned, or it hasn't been rezoned yet. It's like a 2-step process. You have a planning commission of a handful of appointed and elected officials, and then you have the county commissioners. So the planning commission does the work, and then the commissioners come in and approve or reject something. Right. So it passed the planning commission last month, or at their previous meeting, and then it will go before the county commissioners to be approved or rejected. We've seen them reject something before. We saw the asphalt plant that was proposed a couple of years ago in Henry County. Milestone was trying to build an asphalt plant. Planning commission approved it, and then the commissioner said no.
Time. Okay.
So it's happened before. It's pretty uncommon, but it has happened. But I guess at some point we start to get a reputation for, and we just can't have any development, right? Right. So we've got an industrial park. As a guy that lives there, I think I was actually doing a podcast that night, or I was doing something else, so I wasn't able to attend. I think it was Thursday. It was a week ago that meeting was.
Yeah, podcast night. The night that we went to do the podcast.
We were podcasting in Indianapolis. So you can go back into the We Are Libertarians feed and find that one. But the same reasons why it makes sense for residency is also the same reason why it makes sense for light industry. It's between, it's south of the city where the community probably wants to grow. Right. It's sandwiched between 2 state roads. It's just off an interstate. It's a improved road with water and electric and sewer. So it's every box you want to tick, and it's a 160 acre site or whatever it is, 140 somewhere in there. Do you think there's a better site? For us to continue to grow, Okay,
so I have to go back to the beginning, and I'm going to beat the same drum.
Sure.
It starts with the process. There were people that lived right across the street that weren't notified. And I have a really serious problem with that. I think that's our first failure in government, is that we're not being forthright.
So maybe there's a legal requirement for certain distance.
There is.
And then there's the, hey, it would be, really nice to continue to tell everybody else. Right. So to my understanding, because I inquired as well, because I was like, how'd this happen? Because there were people on our local Facebook page saying, hey, the planning commission stuck things in my mailbox that weren't stamped, and there was all this. It was a concerned and basically
neighbor.
What had happened was the people that needed to be notified, they received a letter a month ahead of time or something, and then somebody took it upon themselves to make copies and then distribute it to more people in the neighborhood. Which then got pointed back at the county government saying, you're doing this wrong. And they're like, no, we did our thing. And then somebody else did it, and it sounded bad.
Maybe they did it right legally. They don't always, in my experience, but maybe this time they did.
So in this I'm pretty confident. Because listen, I'm a libertarian guy. I'm going to cast stones when they're to be cast.
Right.
But I'm pretty confident that they did it to the letter of the law.
Okay.
So then that's where I'm like, well, okay, what else do they need to do? How much more? What should have happened?
I just found out about this new text notification system. You can put your zip code in, and the county's supposed to give you information about what's going on around you. Did you guys get this?
No, where'd that come from?
My husband put it on my phone. I think Henry County's starting this. And so that would be great if I could find out about everything within 5 miles of my house, especially a rezone. You know, we could define what is helpful. Facebook pages. I also was told and haven't verified that the legal notice went in the Middletown paper rather than the Courier, which I think is inappropriate since it happened in the southern part of the county. But I didn't verify if that's true. So I think that we want to do everything that we can to make people know what's going on around their house. I think that my perception, this is really my belief, is that our county tries not to notify people more than they have to because they don't want people to find out and try to get in the way of the process. And so I think we want to stop doing that. We want people to know what's going on. We want to give them every opportunity to stand up and voice their opinion.
All right.
But what was your first question? Is there a better place for it?
Is there a better is there a better place?
That's the real question. That's a hard question.
And as a government person, it's how do you balance? Okay, are we central planners or are we for natural order? Right? You know, if I own ground, then I get to control what happens on my ground.
Yes.
If the neighbors say no, we want to keep that as farm ground, then they can probably write a check to the people that own that property and say, hey, I'll pay you, we'll go in together, we'll create a joint partnership, and we'll spend $200,000, and we're going to keep it that way forever.
I thought about that, too. How much would it cost each of the neighbors?
How much would it cost you guys to keep it?
Their view.
Right. Because that's, my property rights end at my property line.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's, okay, I have an opinion, but I can't tell Susan at least I shouldn't be able to tell you can't keep goats because I don't like goats.
Right.
Right. I'm a sheep guy, and I've got this problem against keep the Nubians back.
Unless my goats are doing something that are
unless your goats are coming on my
hurting
ground,
your property value or significantly impacting noise level or something. I'm not sure how goats would do that.
Yeah. So
they're loud.
Your ability to enjoy your property ends when it passes over the property line to the people around you, and it infringes on their property rights because everyone has the right to enjoy their property.
Yeah, you have quiet enjoyment.
That is actually pretty. That's, I don't know. It's kind of like this paradox within libertarian thinking, especially if you're one of the utopian libertarians that believe in this perfect society where there are no laws and no government, and we're just all very happy with our free markets and everything.
Which would happen if people were perfect and somehow didn't ever negatively impact each other.
Yes, try to be a little more pragmatic.
Yeah. So that's kind of that paradox. What do you do with your senses? So if you have a hog farm and it smells horrible at my house and I lived here for 20 years and then you had hogs all of a sudden, well, then can I have a say in that? You're still well within your property rights. There's so many different issues with that. How can you regulate another person's senses?
I don't know if you can regulate.
Senses, not senses, right? That's what you're saying.
Not senses.
Smell, taste, smell,
Yes.
feel. I feel your hog farm over there, Kade.
Well, there's a hog farm close to my house, and the only one of us that smelled it when we first moved in was my daughter, who is very sensitive. And so does it bother me that I can smell the hog farm once a week for an hour? So I think there's an issue where, is it a significant decrease in your property value? Is it a significant decrease in your quality of life or your enjoyment of your own property? When I talk to people around me, there are people who can't sit on their front porch because they always smell it.
Yeah.
And I think, and the same thing with the wind farm, and I've said this before, if it was going to decrease my property value by 2% or 4% or 5%, then we don't live in a vacuum. We affect the people around us. But when studies show that wind farms can decrease your property value by 50% or more within a half mile, then that to me becomes a taking of property. You need to make sure what you do on your property, it might impact your neighbor, but if you're significantly harming your neighbor, harming their property value, harming their enjoyment of their property, then I think that that's when government regulates.
Yeah, and that's another difficult question, is who or what decides what is significant?
Well, the property value is a number, and it has been studied. And in fact, the main study that's used to say wind farms don't hurt property value only looked at wind farms beyond a half a mile from your house, so it's irrelevant.
So, as far as I know, the Henry County Economic Development Corporation is not seeking wind farms any longer. They about a year and a half ago they announced, hey, we're not pursuing them any longer, and there aren't any active projects.
I believe that's a lie.
You don't think
that's
the
what
case?
They say.
Okay.
I believe that they say that.
Okay.
I don't believe they mean it.
So currently, you're running for county council.
Correct.
The involvement, county council is the financial arm of county government.
Yes.
So, and I'm also,
yes.
I made this announcement on Sunday. I'm also running for county council. Different races. We're not running against each other. I'm running for open seat District 1. You're running for District 4. So we may end up serving together.
Yes.
But it's basically the financial side. So you set tax policy and you spend money. You set the budgets or attempt to set the budgets when the state leaves you alone. How do you see this race relating to wind farms or wind ordinances? Because that was obviously a big part of your last campaign.
It's a very small, almost irrelevant piece of it. When people say I'm a one-issue candidate, it reflects a non-understanding or a misunderstanding of the county council. So I would not vote for a tax abatement for a wind farm, but I don't think many of the people left on the county council would. I don't think you would as a libertarian. No,
absolutely not. And honestly,
so I don't think it's that relevant.
We've polled, I know Clay Morgan has said no. I think your opponent Nate has said no, he wouldn't vote for it. I've heard that from him. Looking across the council, I think you're going to struggle to come up with more than 2 to 3.
Yes.
You'd be really stretching to find 2 to 3 votes that are going to vote for it. And I've heard people say, hey, wind farms aren't going to happen without an abatement. So if you don't have the votes, why are we still flogging the horse that's been dead for a while?
So, Kade, you're the wind farm guy here. You get all kinds of flack online from people who are opposed to wind farms because you own you're part of a very successful farming operation, and you get all kinds of negativity on the Facebook from people who are against wind farms. So we need to bring you into this conversation a little bit as far as wind farms go.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you want to add?
With the tax abatement, if it was up to me, I probably wouldn't vote for it either.
A gasp.
You traitor. You're a fake farmer.
Being a reasonable person, I don't think that the county government should pick and choose who wins and who loses.
Yeah.
I think from what I've seen, what's proposed on the abatement, it's kind of a gradual type thing at first. As it progresses through the years, they would pay more. So it's not a 10-year abatement of them paying nothing. So it is something that would be gradual. And I can understand if a county would see that and be okay with it. But I just don't think that it should come to the county government picking and choosing who wins and who loses.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
it comes to that.
Right.
So
I don't want to talk about wind farms the whole time.
But
But
economic development, I think, whether it's wind or other installations or projects, whether it's, obviously farm ground gets taxed out the nose. So, you guys pay 3% taxes on your farm ground. Residential where you have a 1% cap and business, I think any business is 3%. So if you're looking at, I assume that you were supportive of Boar's Head locating here and TS Tech and some of those other facilities.
Awesome. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, in my mind, this parcel that folks are getting upset about on 300 that we were talking about, the Planning Commission approved.
Yes.
It's literally just down the street from the industrial park that's there.
It's not adjacent to it. That was my first question. Is this land that butts right up against it?
It's the same corridor, though.
It's the same corridor. And so I drove it over and over, and I've been thinking about it. And it is a difficult question. Like I said, the first thing is the process. Are we respecting people when we start it? It is surrounded on 3 sides by residences. And so I can see their concern. And so it comes back into my mind, are we doing land planning in the best way possible? And I wasn't at the meeting, so I can only say what I've been told, which I've learned is dangerous. But I heard that our EDC director said, I need this land because we need 143 acres. And we need 143 acres. Do we need that 143 acres? I personally would like to see where is all the industrial...
I'm going to slide this over just a touch for you. You're okay.
I
just want you to sound better. Looking out for you, Susan.
Where is all the industrial land in the county located, and how much of it is unused?
Yeah.
And
where does it make sense for expansion?
And where does it best make sense? Because I don't want our county to be reactive. I think the more reactive we are, the more we impact people in a negative way when we could possibly do it in a more positive way.
No, honestly, it just makes us look bad.
It makes it, and then we invite business in, and then we tell them to leave because we don't have a spot for them. So, and maybe Corey Murphy has that information in a map.
Well, so there was Kate and I sat on the planning commission with the commissioners. Once again, spent like $100,000 of, I think it was food and beverage money. Every time we get money,
You're not
going to
say the comprehensive plan,
the comprehensive plan. We were on the steering committee for that.
Okay.
So every time, and that's the map. So the county spent $100,000 on it.
All right.
And every time, I swear to God, every time we raise taxes to get some money, we fight over it. So if we'd quit doing that, I think we'd be okay. Let's stop. Let's send the food and beverage money, and then we'll just quit having these god-awful fights.
So to kind of connect, going back to the rezoning.
But she mentioned the map. That's in that.
Yeah. But to kind of connect that back with the Doughboy, we were talking earlier about maybe getting a grant for that.
Yes.
I know that there's parts of, me and Jeremiah were part of the steering committee for the new comprehensive county plan. And I know there's parts of that are being contested, especially with the wind and everything else. But the rest of that plan would include listing Memorial Park as an asset to the county, as it is. And it would also include what would our future plans be for industrial site as far as the south side of town, between 103 and 70 in the south side of town.
Right.
I think, would you think that would be a part of that plan would be something we could use to plan for what we want to do in the future with the county?
I haven't read that part of it. Is it in there right now? Because I need to go home and read it.
As far as I know.
But that's what I'd like to see done, is to map it out. And I don't think the industrial park is currently full.
There are no parcels over 40 acres available. So the parcels that are there are very small. Basically, the largest parcel that was left was filled by REMC.
Okay.
And then if you look at where, unfortunately, a bad decision was made when they made where Landmark Estates sits now, because the natural progression for our industrial park would have been to continue west.
Right.
But they put houses there.
Right.
Somebody, 15 years ago, which was one of the, there was a whole fight. I don't remember if you remember this fight or not. We've had a lot of fights in this county. Mm-hmm. There was a private developer that built Landmark Estates, and about half of it got a road, and half of it never did get a road. And then the county said
I drove through. I think I saw that.
Yeah, I was looking for votes one
when
time
I was
in
looking
2012.
At 300 South. All right.
Yeah. So they finally got the road rebuilt, and it was this horse trade between the county and the guy that wound up buying the ground, and they finally got a road built. But anyway, this neighborhood's kind of been a black eye for the county for a while. It's very nice homes, but they never got a road.
Okay.
Basically, the housing market crashed, and the developer never finished it.
Okay.
So these people bought a $300,000 house, and they've got a gravel nothing for something to drive on. But it sits directly to the east of where the industrial park should, if you're looking at
expand.
That's should
where
have
you
expanded
want it to go.
Right. If we're playing the central planning thing, which again, I question whether or not that's really what we need to be doing, but here we are. We have to deal with the present. Mm-hmm. So that's where I go back to, okay, what's appropriate? Where should it go? What's the right thing? If this 140 acres is something that a portion of people don't like, what's not in somebody's backyard? Because I want a strong community so that when my new wife and I have kids, we want to grow up here. Right. We don't want to have people move to Hamilton County or Fishers.
So here are just a few more thoughts. I want business here, and I want us to open the door to business. It's possible. I do think it's possible that something could go there. That would be good. I think I disagree with the blanket rezone, especially without addressing any of the concerns of the people there. They approved it before they came back and talked about the drainage problems. They didn't talk anything about any kind of visual buffer or anything that could be done. And without knowing what could go there, I think it would be more appropriate to know what's going to go there. Because I think you said storage facilities.
Light industrial. So it'd be, we look at what we have now. Like I've lived at two different places inside of. Are you familiar with what White Estates is? It's basically from where Duke Energy is now.
Okay.
They're building along 300 South to Main Street.
Okay.
And then north to Jeffrey Street.
Okay.
If you know those streets.
Yes.
That general area is what's called White Estates.
Okay.
It was developed by an old farmer named White in the 60s and 70s. So I lived in an apartment. There's basically the south end of that along 300 are apartments, and then there's some nicer homes a little bit further north. I literally lived in the apartment that is on the southwest corner of that. Uh-huh. So it's at 300 and Jane Boulevard.
Right.
It is you look out the front door and you're looking at Duke Energy, which is in the industrial complex.
Right.
And DL Couch is out there, which is another one of those light industrial ones.
Yes.
As a guy that lived there, and now I still live in that same neighborhood, a little bit more tucked inside, not looking out in the industrial area, I had a well-manicured lawn in front of me. I had people that went to work during the day, and then at night it was quiet and left alone. The buildings looked good. To me, it was a great situation where I had this yard where nothing was going to mess with me, and it was clean.
But you said you were renting.
I rented there, yeah.
And I think that
I own in the neighborhood still.
Okay. And you bought knowing what was going to be there.
I knew what's there.
Whoops. Yeah.
But I guess you still have that deep decision of, okay, I control to my property line, and past that, you never know what's going to happen. Right. And I just don't know how do I have the authority to tell somebody that they can't develop something that makes sense for the neighborhood?
Well, it's a progression, so I can't sit on my front porch and shoot my neighbor. I can't dispose of nuclear waste on my property. And there's a lot of things you can't do on your property because they bleed over. I'm not saying that is what you're saying, but I am saying that if you hold a completely purist position, I could do anything on my property that I wanted, even if it caused the death of my neighbor. So you have to be on the continuum somewhere.
Very few deaths in light industrial. Heavy industrial, I could definitely see them doing,
my
doing some
point
killing.
is that at some point government steps in to regulate, which is what zoning is supposed to do. It's supposed to control non-compatible uses of land.
Right.
And again, I'm not necessarily arguing against this rezone, but in a conversation.
But as a general rule, you're calling for more transparency or a better alert system for this.
Yes. Because the people who found out, what if they wanted to talk to their lawyer? What if they wanted to go and see what the ideas were? And I also will throw this out and say, I don't believe that that no one in the county knows what's going to go there. And I'll apologize if I'm wrong about that.
I don't know. I legitimately think it's something to be marketed. I don't think that they know, personally.
And I'm just saying that I do. And if that is the case, I think it's wrong not to be transparent about that with the people involved.
I see people on Facebook saying, "Hey, it's going to be a wind farm staging area."
I don't necessarily agree with that. I just know from watching county politics as long as I have, and just in the past few years, you've been watching longer, I would not be surprised if people do have several ideas about what's going to go there, and they're not saying. And I disagree with that.
I can see that. I don't know either way. I don't want to say either way.
But I'll apologize if I'm wrong. I'm all right with being wrong.
So if that is rezoned as light industrial, is there a type of light industrial use that you think that would be oppressive or would be trouble for the people that live there? Is there something they could have that's incompatible?
I know the owners of that property personally, and I would trust their word. They don't know what's going there. If it was up to me.
Even if that's the case, like you never control. Like there were people that have all of these philosophical arguments about, well, this guy owned the property 20 years ago and he did never want it to be messed with. So then, once you don't own it anymore, you don't own it. Right. So if it gets rezoned and this investment group sells it to somebody else, they can't control it either.
Yeah.
So that's where you have the protection of the zoning. So that's where the question becomes, okay, if it's light industrial, what in light industrial is going to cause you to lose your quiet enjoyment? That's the part that I don't see the harm.
The fact there's a giant factory right there. Like, if you don't just see a field anymore. There's a factory, like, right in your backyard. I didn't buy it. Whenever I was looking at moving to Greenfield in the Maxwell area, I looked at a house online.
That's where I moved from.
Oh, really?
I moved from Maxwell.
Yeah. You guys didn't like the Independent Pipe County Materials Factory there?
No, we wanted our homestead. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Well, exactly what he was talking about. We looked at a house online, absolutely loved it, and then we went to look at it in person, and they were expanding the factory, and it was going to be like right in the backyard, and I hated that, and I didn't like that. Right. I totally understand where the people are coming from. Like that's obviously going to suck if there's a giant factory like Boar's Head right there in their backyard. I mean,
and the
it will.
question is, how much does it decrease their property value?
Yeah.
I think we want to keep coming back to that because I think a thriving economy in a county increases everyone's property value. So I think that
we've got to increase the tax base because the houses that sit empty get on the tax roll. It goes the other way and it just drains us.
Yeah,
we have got to find a way for new investment. So at some point, we've got to come together and say, okay, we got to call it truce and figure out where in the world these things can actually be built. Because we do have, there's a lot. Surely you think there's a lot going for Henry County.
Yes.
I mean, we've got 3 interstate interchanges. We've got major state roads. We've got fiber optic internet. We've got, 2 of our 3 interchanges with I-70 have city water and utilities.
And I think that in time, that development's going to come. So when we hear that we're losing out to Hancock County because we don't have the right amount of space, that's partially true. It needs to be addressed. It's also a bottom line fact that Hancock County is closer to Indy and it still has space.
Yep.
And so that's hard to compete with. That's why we keep issuing all these revenue bonds and we're just begging companies to come here because their first choice would probably be Hancock County. We need to develop our workforce because companies don't want to locate here when they can't hire people because we have so many people with the drug problem. So we don't have people that can hire. So we have some strikes against us that aren't just that we don't have the right land, but we do still need to welcome business. And I think developing a plan so we don't keep putting houses where we want to expand industry, because then we really do have a problem. We need to expand business, but is it okay to decrease the property value of 120 homes? I think we need to do it wisely.
Yeah.
I think,
Cautiously
again, that
is
goes
all I'm
back to
saying.
the comprehensive plan. I think a lot of that's addressed in there. It's still subject to change, so I'm sure if you go back
I
through
need to go look at that,
and look
yes.
at that, you might find something you could bring up too.
Right.
But when you say you've got a light industrial company looking at 5 different counties, and they're looking for a 140-acre parcel of land, it's going to eventually come down to deciding on whether it's zoned for them already or not.
Yeah, are they going to try to make an investment and then have the angry mob that that kills their project for 2 years because they couldn't get it zoned?
Yeah, if you have multiple parcels and there's only one of them that's already zoned for light industrial, guess where they're going to go?
Right.
So I think they're really just trying to attract those businesses that we do want for the jobs that we do need.
And I think that's valid. To answer your question, what went on with the drive-in land there, that's light industrial. And there's more traffic and different things. But so, again, it's not a shutdown of that rezone. But those people left. I don't know that they had the confidence that they were going to try to make it visually. We didn't talk about any tree cover or anything else that might make...
So those are some of the things that they can probably deal with by ordinance, right?
Yeah.
Where you can...
Like mounds and privacy fences and stuff like that.
Right. And my day job is in construction, so I see a lot of this. When you go in and you hire a civil engineer and an architect to design this type of a project, you have a civil set of drawings that says, hey, the water you have, you need to deal with it. So if you're going to have a modern facility built, they're going to have to deal, by code, they have to deal with the water that's on their property. So you're going to have retention ponds.
Right.
My neighborhood was built in the 60s by a farmer who just kind of said, yeah, let's go for it. So I'm looking at a major sewer bill. We've joked about this on the show that they use basically drain tile for clay tile to build sewers in my neighborhood. And Indiana Department of Environmental Management is suing the county and the city, and they're all in these private meetings dealing with this mess because they didn't do it the right way.
Right.
If you look at a modern deal, we have the sewer problem, but then we also have just standing water because they don't have, if you build a neighborhood now, you have retention ponds and everybody's sloped and you deal with it. This actually would have the opportunity to give you somewhere to put some of this water that you're dealing with.
Right.
Which in my view, once again, a guy that lives a half mile from the parcel, I think it's actually probably a good chance to improve it. So,
and luckily, one of the guys that is part owner of that land right now owns an excavation company. So, I mean, that would be something that could be worked in, I'm sure, to handle some of that runoff, to deal with some of that water with retention ponds.
So, Jerry, you mentioned the county being sued.
Yeah.
That leads us to another point on the show notes that is part of Susan's platform, which is improvements on the county jail.
Yes.
Whenever you say that, do you mean we need to build a totally new facility? Do we just keep rehabbing and putting Band-Aids on the old facility? What do we do with that?
Well, I think we need a new facility. The question is when. Right now, the jail is up to code, and it can pass code. Whether or not it can pass code or pass inspection next week or a month from now is really the question.
Have you toured the jail yet?
I haven't been through the jail. No, I was going to go with my kids when I was running in 2016, but after David Hearing went through, I wasn't sure it was safe to take the kids through, and I haven't been through since then.
Yeah. Boss Hog of Liberty is planning on going through. Maybe the 3 of us can go.
I would love to go with male protection. I honestly I'm just not sure it's wise for me to go through with the kids. My husband works out of town. But, I know they did a justice report, and they're waiting for the results of that. And I think that's going to be really telling. And it's been done by someone outside the county, someone who specializes. I know one of the suggestions is to rebuild in the same place, which I find concerning, closing down a road and expanding where it is. I'm afraid, and I don't know until I see the report, but I'm afraid that we'll end up in another situation where in 5 or 10 years it's not enough. So without seeing the report, I would favor a different location. I also assume they did projections for how many inmates we're expected to have and for how long are we going to meet code in that same report. I don't have access to the report. If it is possible to Band-Aid it until the Justice Center is paid off, I think that's an option. But we need to make sure that it is feasible when we get that report back before we do it.
Yeah. So you're listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast on the We're Libertarians Network. Jeremiah Morrell, Dakota Davis, Kade Koger, and County Council candidate Susan Huhn are with us. What you got, Dakota? I cut you off to do our intro.
I was getting ready to talk about Rush County with their shell building, just like what we have here in Henry County in the industrial park. So Rush County is making that their jail, if I'm not mistaken. But do you think that's a pretty decent idea? Or what are you?
All of these counties are having this problem. Delaware County's taking an old middle school and turning it into a jail.
Yeah. And my dad, I moved from I grew up in Delaware County. My dad still lives there, and he was telling me that they have these things now where they can drop in secured pods. And so you can turn an existing building into a jail easier, which I thought was interesting. But I'm not a jail engineer. And I agree.
Well, you've got like 3 degrees, and we could send you back. You can't need that many more credits to become a jail engineer, Susan.
Every county, you're right, is having the same problem. And if converting an existing building works and it's in a good location, I'm not opposed to doing that. But I'm looking forward to reading the results.
I think
of
Muncie
that
just
study.
bought a school on the south side, didn't they?
Yeah.
To put theirs.
Yeah, Wilson Middle School, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. There's a lot of different options out there. But, we could spend so much time talking about jails and why every county is facing this issue and why it's just now an issue.
They changed the real easy answer. State law changed, and instead of sending them to state prisons, they're now responsible to be held in the counties.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So the county jails are busting at the seams.
Yeah. There's just there's so much that can be said about the jail, and I really do want to take a tour of it because I do think it's really easy to sit here in our spare bedroom in Newcastle and talk about, this is going bad at the jail. The jail is bad. We need a new one.
It's hearsay.
We need to go.
Agree.
I want to go see it. I want to see what they're actually dealing with. I'd like to talk to Rick and see just what all his issues are because to be quite frank with you, I'm just not that educated on it, and I need
talked
to
to Rick this week, and
Rick is the county sheriff, Rick McCorkle.
And that are we currently up to code? Because I believe there were times where we weren't, and we are. And so I think the question is, how long can we stay that way before we have to move? And I assume those projections, I don't have those projections, but I assume they're in the report, which they expect to get back soon.
So the county voted to raise our income taxes a couple years ago to pay for public safety.
Yeah.
Did you support that at the time? Would you?
I don't think I was here, or if I did, I didn't know about it. It was before my entrance into county politics.
All right. So now that they're stealing our money,
are they using it effectively?
What should be going on with this low-up money? Should it be being put in the bank to pay cash for a jail? Should they? At some point, something's going to have to happen. So you've got to come up with the money to do it.
Well, I think my interpretation
is it going to be a bond? What's your thought?
Well, and that's what we've heard from Kim Cronk. If we wait till the Justice Center is paid off, we'll take that same amount of money that we're already paying and pay for the jail. And so I think that. But I've heard from other people in county government it can't wait that long. Hearsay, more hearsay. And so if it could, that would be great because no one wants to raise taxes for anything. If I pay another penny in taxes, I want it to go for roads that I can see built. I don't want it to go to statues or even the jail. I want to be able to drive on the roads in the county.
So that's one of the
don't tax me more if I can't drive on my road.
That's one of the sweeteners that the wind farm proponents have had is when you build this thing, you've got 800 and some miles of county road in the county, and they have to basically return your roads to a good condition. They're going to destroy them to build these things.
Right.
So the side benefit is you may have gotten 100 or 200 miles of county road for free.
Well, it's roads and drainage, too.
Roads and
Yes.
So you also, that's another avenue why so many of the commissioners have advocated this, where you only have so many tools in the toolbox, so that's why you've seen them push for that.
And I think some counties I've looked at, that was done well, and some counties it wasn't. So I think that as far as the roads go, that might have been helpful. from my perspective, then you end up with people who don't want to drive on the roads because they don't want to live there. So I don't think it's an effective trade-off myself. But strictly from the roads being, I think it does sometimes work that way.
So as a council person, you will be involved in funding of that. You don't necessarily get to make the decisions, with the highway department or the commissioners. That's more of the executive side. Do you think they have a decent plan now with their prioritization of, the main arteries or what they're going to work on first and dealing with drainage, or are you supportive of the path they're going? Should they be doing something differently?
For the roads.
For the roads.
We got money from the state, and I was really excited about that. And then I saw the plan for how it was going to be used. And I think it's on good stuff, but I don't think we're going to see the benefit in a noticeable way. It's going to go to fix bridges that have to be fixed, or else they're going to collapse. But as far as roads we all drive on to go home, I don't think any of us are going to say, wow, we really got road money.
I read something interesting
it doesn't
the
fault
other day.
Anyone.
It said like 80% of the bridges in the United States wouldn't pass inspection today. I thought that was a crazy figure.
I'm not sure that that's quite accurate, but I can tell you that
if you truly want to deal with it,
that's my day job. I'm in the reconstructing bridges is that's what pays the bills for me. So that's not quite accurate, but there, if you look at what it takes just to get us up to a very low threshold, the amount of dollars that are going to be required to pay for all of these is absolutely staggering.
It's very expensive. And I was amazed when I looked at where the money was going. I can't remember how much of it is, and it's over a 5-year period of time. And so I don't criticize that they're fixing our bridges. And I do think I've been told that there is a schedule where the roads in the county have been ranked and prioritized, which I think is a good technique to start. I think there's just not money going to fix the ones at the top of the list.
I think it might be a security measure from the Department of Homeland Security. Why attack the United States if all of our infrastructure is already crumbling? There's nothing to destroy if it's already destroyed, right?
And we're not the only county with the road problem, but it's a problem that I don't see it from a funding perspective improving, which I think is concerning.
A lot of it, if you compare us to Rush County is a county with smaller population. If you look at their roads and the way they have ditches and the way they deal with water and runoff, they have crowns on their roads, and they just legitimately are set up better. And it's not something that was done by the people that are in office today. Okay. In my view, we don't have any county councilmen or county commissioners that were there in the 1960s and 70s when some of these county roads were created. So you're dealing with the hand you're dealt. And so much of this is, it's not serving in government's not easy. I can say from the five-person park board I was on to, if you're elected to the council, you're one of 7. If you're commissioner, you're one of 3. Right. You're, trying to get all of those people to agree on anything or get a plan to go forward and then have the patience to actually execute it.
Right.
It's not easy.
Good luck.
Yes. And I said this to someone the other day. I can see that people who are running for the first time are optimistic. I think that fresh optimism can be helpful to spur change on, but I'm sure it is much harder than it looks like from the other side.
There's no doubt. So another thing that's a platform on your platform, and it's something that we've advocated for as the Libertarian Party in Henry County for quite some time, is transparency in government. Trying to make things accessible. When I ran for county council 4 years ago, I said, hey, we need to make sure the meetings are not during the day. We need to have meetings that are in the evenings so that they're easy. County council meetings are at 3:30 once a month.
Yes.
Thank you to Councilman Clay Morgan.
Every year he asks, can we change the meeting time, please?
Everybody in there rolls their eyes too. It's kind of funny, but it's a big deal. I get off work at 3, so it's like if I want to record that meeting, I'm like rushing. I have to hustle and take the shower wipes, and take my shirt off in the truck and wipe myself down and change my shirt and go in there. Yeah, it's pretty intense. But yeah, we do some recording, and like we were talking about in the threads that we see online all the time, there were some threads talking about using public tax money to pay for people to record meetings. Do you think that's feasible at all? Do you think that's a good idea, a bad idea?
County staff putting it together and streaming it out on YouTube or Facebook, something like that?
I think it's a good idea to make it available by video.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that we've had some offers for donated time to improve just ability to hear in the courtroom. I know someone offered to volunteer their time and just charge costs to work on that.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
I tried to record there one time just with the iPhone that we used to have, and I was in the back, and I mean, I really could not pick up anything. Yeah. I couldn't pick up any sound whenever anybody up front was talking. You couldn't hear them at all.
It's very upsetting.
The acoustics are very...
When you're already upset in a meeting and you came and you have 5,000 other things to do and you can't hear what anyone's saying. And it is unfortunate.
If people are listening and they want to know basically our county courthouse has an old courtroom. So the county commissioner and the county councils have their meetings in an old courtroom, and it's very ornate and it's a beautiful space. But the acoustics are awful. They don't have a studio set up with Dakota Davis treatment of sound tiles all around the walls.
If they
and
pay
everybody
me,
with their own microphone in front of them.
For the low price of $130 an hour, I will go through there and put up sound tiles
We'll go and
everywhere.
hold boom mics for everybody.
Yeah. Apparently, Dakota is not the volunteer we're looking for the county.
The
equipment that we've had to put in here is not that expensive, though.
My husband's a sound guy. And one of my best friend's husband, he's a techie, and you get to the point where you think it surely can't be that expensive to at least improve.
Yeah.
We can't demand from a broke government that we have the best quality, but to be able to hear, I'm not sure it would be that expensive, especially when we have people already volunteering. We have a lot of concerned people in the county right now. I think that's exciting. There's a lot of concerned people that would be willing to help fix a problem like that, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think despite all the arguing and all the different issues and stuff that are going on, I think everybody would agree that we should try to get better at disagreeing.
Yes,
and then we can come together on things like this and kind of get with the times of technology and be able to be transparent with the taxpayers that should have a voice in their local government. And I think that'd be great if we could do that for sure.
I agree.
Well, very cool. So we are at that point in the show where we've worked through the show notes, and it's probably time to start wrapping things up, Susan. We appreciate that you were here very much. This is a great interview. Hopefully, you got a lot out of it, and you've got some information to share with your folks and a platform to share your views.
Yes.
If people want to volunteer, get involved, help with your campaign, how do they do that?
Okay. My signs come in tomorrow, so if anyone wants a sign, they can contact me on Facebook. And help distribute signs. That would be great too. and I think that would be the biggest thing. And tell anyone else about my platform and an opportunity for a fresh voice to be represented and by someone who's compassionate and wants to listen to the people, but wants to do it in a wise way and still pursue economic development for the county, but in a way that might be with more of an open ear.
All right. And then are you do you need volunteers? Are you raising money? Are you good on that front now?
Can you ever have too much money?
Well,
No, I'm just kidding.
You can always save it for the re-election campaign. As a guy that ran a statewide governor's race, I'm always trying to get candidates to raise money. Come on, make your plea.
If you want to donate to my campaign, you can take a check to Dickerson Accounting in Newcastle, care of Gary Rogers, who's my campaign treasurer, and he will make sure that I get the money to finish my campaign as effectively as possible.
Very cool. And you guys do have kind of a neat thing going where you have a number of campaigns that have kind of pooled together and are working as a team.
Yes.
There's some joint signs out there, and Dickerson is handling your campaign.
Yes.
Ed Tarantino, who's running for commissioner, who's scheduled to be on here in a couple weeks. I think they're running. Is it Ken and Gray? They're doing his finances, and then who's the fourth one?
Peg Steffendale.
Okay.
Did you say her already?
No, I have not yet.
Okay.
Okay, and I've yet to meet her. I haven't met her or Ed or Kenan. So we're gonna have Kenan's going to be on as well. So
yeah, it's been really nice to have that support. When I ran 2 years ago, just wanted to make those financial reports perfect, and so it's really nice that Gary stepped forward to do it this time. And all of us, we have met in different ways, and all of us in this, we've been labeled as no-winders, which I think is unfortunate because these are some of the neatest people that I've met, and they really care about the county, and they really want good things for Henry County. Ed Tarantino is an amazing man. Every time I meet him, I like him more.
He was involved in the Veterans Museum, as I understand it. It was pitched to us on the park board. He was going to do these murals. He's done all these murals all over the county, which is I'm excited to talk to him about those. He's a jack of all
trades, and he's educated, and he is kind, and very intelligent. And I think our county would be so privileged to have him as a leader. And so You can label us no-winders, but we want transparent government. We want to serve with integrity and represent the people in all ways, not just in one issue.
All right. Well, very good. We appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you very much.
So, Kade, you got any final thoughts for us?
Just thanks for having me on again. I know people were probably watching this expecting a huge fight between me and Susan, but she's just too nice.
We didn't fight online. We're not going to fight in a room.
And we get along. We're just too reasonable.
For what Susan's running for, you both agreed you'd have the same position. Whether it was Susan on the ballot or Kade, you're both against the abatements, and that's really the only influence that the office has, right? I
agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. How do we follow you, Kade? By the way, you've slimmed down again on me. You're down to 250 and change.
I'm down to 252, so that's 124 since a year ago.
That's phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So working on that. And then I shaved all my facial hair off. My wife's never seen me with a bare face, so...
Really?
Baby-faced Kade over here.
I just got a wild hair the other night, and it's like, I got to get rid of it. So.
You got nothing else to do. You can't get in the fields right now because there's snow all over everything.
Yeah. So... yeah. Now, everybody, you can add me on Facebook or follow me on Instagram at The Armed Farmer. I have an Instagram account that I keep up on, so if you just want to see my farm and things that I do.
And follow him on Snapchat, too. Kade is like, you get the inside access of, they just went through beef birthing season.
Yeah, you might see a calf get born.
Yeah, the whole deal.
We just had twins the other day, too.
Field trip.
Did you really?
You need a field trip.
Yeah, I'd love to set that up. I'd like to kind of get connected with local schools and stuff and have kids come out and see
Susan's got 5 kids that she can bring out.
Yeah, bring them
I
out.
have a homeschool co-op that would love to come.
Absolutely.
To your farm.
Get a hold of me. We can set that up.
Okay, great.
All right, Dakota, put on your chairman hat. Tell me what we did this weekend.
All right, I'm putting on my county chairman hat. The Libertarian Party of Henry County, actually, it was the whole Libertarian Party of the 6th District. Everybody was invited. We had our convention this weekend. We heard from Mr. Mark Rutherford, who we had on the show, who's running as a Libertarian for the Secretary of State, which is a very important race for Libertarians. That's how we secure our ballot access. We got to hear from him. He did a great job talking about the importance of that race and why he's a great candidate. We nominated 5 people in Henry County to run for public office. So we have Terry Kaufman, we have Francis Lewis, we have Jamie Owens, Jeremiah Morrell. I mean, we have such a strong presence here in Henry County.
And Jesse Riddle running District 3 for County Council.
District 3 County Council, Jesse Riddle. And he was on the ballot last year.
2 years ago.
It seems like
perennial
only
candidate
a year ago.
Jesse Riddle.
Yes,
it's the third time he's run for county council.
Yeah,
he got to get some signs at some point because he can just keep reusing it.
He should. But like I said, whenever I was up there giving the little spiel on Henry County, I'm just so excited about the base that we have here. We have such a good foundation here in Henry County, and it's awesome. We have 18 members, and it just seems like everybody does their part. We don't have a member that doesn't pitch something and contribute something to our party, and it's really, really, really neat. And so the convention was just great. We got to hear from the state chairman for the entire Libertarian Party in the state, and Mr. Tim McGuire, and he gave us all kinds of updates. It was awesome. It was just, we were at Montgomery's. So it was good food, good people, just an all-around good time. So I guess that was part of my final thoughts. My second part of my final thoughts is just keep listening to us. Like us on Facebook. Just download our episodes on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Download on iTunes. And, tell your friends. Like, talk about us. Like, that's how, like, most of all, the thing that you can do for us is just talk to your friends. Like, Boss Hog of Liberty is covering politics within the 6th District of Indiana. And they just had Susan Huhn on, who is running for, your district county council. Like, that's how we grow. That is the biggest thing. And the very least, just listen to us. Follow me, Facebook. It is me and my wife, Audrey, and we are standing in front of the bean.
You have a joint Facebook account? Is this news?
No, that is not news.
You and your wife, Audrey.
No, I'm talking about my profile picture. It is me and my wife, Audrey, standing in front of the bean in Chicago. So that you know that you have the right Dakota Davis, because there's a lot of us. And you can follow me on Twitter at @AtoCatSavant. I've actually had some followers, and I feel guilty for not ever posting anything.
You never tweet. Awesome. Well, I made some news this weekend. I did announce that I'm running for the Henry County Council in the open seat. I'm excited to do it. I got the paperwork back. I'm officially on the ballot. I got my little certified candidate form. So I will be on your November ballot. I don't have to suffer through the primary process. I just get to play political pundit and talk to everybody and learn about the candidacies, and I'm excited to do that. We have the unique platform on the Boss Hog of Liberty to actually, first of all, we're libertarians, so nobody knows what box to put us in, so we're friendly with everybody. And I'm very confident that the people that are running for office all have the best intentions, and I know I have a good relationship with Susan and with Nate, who's her opponent, not her enemy in this, but her opponent. They're both seeking the same office with different ideas. And I look at that across the board. I'm excited that we have contested races. When we ran candidates 4 years ago for these races, Darren Jacobs ran in Nate's race and as a Democrat in the fall. And if the Libertarians didn't run, we had District 1, 2, and 3. We were the only thing that made them interview for their jobs at all. Really? So it's very important that candidates run. If you it's probably too late now to run as Republican or Democrat, but if you contact Dakota and you pass the Libertarian bravery test, we might have some opportunities for you.
That's right.
But yeah, it's exciting, and I'm glad you're here. This is the beginning of a series for us. Next week we will have Butch Baker on, the county commissioner, who's running in the race in the Northern District. Ed Tarantino is his challenger. So we're excited to have Butch on and talk to him. He was the sheriff and now is serving. He's completing his first term as county commissioner. I fly off on Sunday morning, weather permitting, to Washington, D.C. with Purdue School of Ag. And I'm going to get to tour the Pentagon. I'm going to do a little podcast at ESPN Radio on Monday night with ESPN Washington. A friend of mine is he's running for the county council in Montgomery County, Maryland. Okay. So we're going to compare Henry County politics versus big Washington, D.C. market Montgomery County politics. You're in a primary with one person. It's a pick four, so it's like an at-large race. Okay. Four spots, 40 candidates. How in the world do you win that race? Wow. That's not easy.
That's crazy.
So yeah, we're going to talk to him about that, and we'll drop this in the feed. So when you see me with a guy named Steve Solomon, that's what that was going to be about. Weather permitting, it could go terribly wrong. It may not happen, but I've got my hopes up. And then I'll get to meet with Congressman Messer's people on Tuesday. They're not in session next week, so he's running for Senate, so I don't think we'll actually see him this year. But I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a fun trip. Very much thank everybody for watching the show today. We are here kind of as your independent media source. There's not really another show like this in Henry County or East Central Indiana, and we're excited to have people here. What you can do to keep this going, jump on wearelibertarians.com, find Boss Hog of Liberty, subscribe to us on all the platforms. We are the local show for We Are Libertarians. The big network is out there, and you can go back and find Kade's episode with myself and the lovely Sarah Potter, my fiance, and Chris Spangle, where we covered some ag issues on that, and then some other national stuff as well. That's more of a national show. This is your local one. We appreciate you listening, and we will see you all next week with Commissioner Baker.
Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at wearelibertarians.com.